Preaching Amitabha Sutra, Part 1, April 17th, 2021. Namo Bổn Sư Thích Ca Mâu Ni Phật. I invite you to put your hands together and bow our Buddha. Today is a happy day. Why are we happy throughout the village when someone dies? If he passed away and went into the realm of an animal, a demon, or hell, then it would be very sad. But we lost our fellow Buddhist follower who had the sign of rebirth in Pure Land realm. And our support of recitation has a successful result. That is the reason we are happy today. Điều, Hồng, I want to tell you that losing a husband is a sorrow. However, losing a husband in a mortal world to add a new member in the Pure Land realm is an unspeakable merit. There are people mistaken about the following verse. The merit of building 7 temples is not comparable to saving 1 life. For example, a person gambles at the casino and he lost all his money. Or say someone got drunk and starts to beat his wife and beats his children. These people were driving, got into an accident, and died. The doctor brought them back to life in the hospital. After they completely heal, they then go back to gambling, drinking, or adultery. Is there any merit from saving them or not? Of course not. But the merit of saving a person to be reborn in the Pure Land realm is more than building 10 shamrams. Do you understand? A person who gambles, beat his wife and children, was filial with his parents, wasted his wealth and his blessing. He was in distress and ran here to pray for blessing. We helped him, and then he continued the same path of beating his wife and his children. Would we then have any merit or not? Definitely not. Saving a person to benefit sentient beings or saving a person who is reborn in the Pure Land is truly a blessing. This person will meet Amitabha Buddha and other Bodhisattvas. The Amitabha Buddha has the divine eyes, so he knows what we need to become Buddha. There is no one in the Pure Land realm to bother us. Will there be anyone who criticizes us or not? None. It is very pure up there. Gold, precious gems, clothes, and food are ample. Anywhere you go, you will hear the Bodhisattvas preaching the Dharma. The Amitabha Buddha even creates the birds in order to deliver the Dharma. Back then, we listened and we didn't understand the verse thoroughly. There are female villagers who buy Buddha's names recitation machines hung on the trees so we can hear the sound of reciting Buddha's name when we walk by it. Now that we understand this, we recognize today is a happy day. And it is not a sad day. We have 3 people reborn in the Pure Land realm in this village. The number of people who officially left behind the relics through the process of supportive recitation are only 14. However, people like Trian's father or Nun Haumfat's father were not considered because at that time they were buried. So we don't have the relics. Later on, I said it would be wasteful if they wanted to be buried. From that on, upon arrival, I asked if there was a will or not. If it said bury, I would not perform the supportive recitation because you still value your rotten physical body. I will request to change to cremation. And if they still want to have a burial, I will only chant sutras. For example, if Buddhist follower Min Hui stated burial in his will, I wouldn't perform the supportive recitation for him. People who want to be buried won't receive the supportive recitation from me. I will simply go to the funeral home to chant the Amitabha Sutra, make the offering ceremony for the dead, and then finish my duties. From now on, you must clearly state that you want to be cremated, not buried. If you want to be buried after the relic collection ceremony, your urns will be buried. I will preserve a place in Kano Village Cemetery for your burial. Now that fellow Min Hua passed away, does he still want anything in this world or not? Of course not. When he was still alive, he didn't even regret anything anymore because his wife already took care of everything. You must use your wisdom for me. We don't have enough time to preach the Amitabha Sutra in detail. I will focus on the quintessence of this sutra only. Normally, the Buddha revealed about the sutra because his disciples requested it. That is, if someone asked, then the Buddha would speak. Did anyone ask about the Amitabha Sutra or not? No one or any of his disciples requested. Listen carefully. As I heard. Who heard? It was Venerable Anang. The Buddha, after announcing the date of entering nirvana, those who obtain arhat level, they had no affliction because they said there was no more wood, so the fire would be out. The Buddha only left his physical body, but his Dharma body remains forever. These arhats said that all dharmas created because of the condition, and the dharma cease to exist when the conditions no longer available. They did not weep, but they raced to enter nirvana. The 500 concubines also uses the samaya power to enter nirvana. They all went to the banks of the Shangha River, including the Buddha's stepmother and his former wife, to use the samaya power of the arhat and burn their physical bodies. The Buddhist followers came later to collect their relics. Sounds like a great action, but is there any benefits or not? There is absolutely no benefits. Who was the first person who came to say farewell to the Buddha after the Buddha announced that he would be gone in 3 months? It was Elder Suputra. He also takes the lead. If I say that I will die in 3 months, Master Dui Min says that he will go back to his mother so he can fulfill his duty and die there. As for Nun Hong Duk, she will die in the garden with her mother. Will our villagers agree or not? Master Tu Nun also announced to go back to Arizona to teach his children and then enter nirvana. If all the monks die here, will this village collapse or not? It will definitely collapse. Venerable Anang had not obtained any enlightenment level, so he was full of tears. Elder Kayasapa told Venerable Anang that he was the one who had listened to the Buddha and retained the sutra like water pouring into a glass without losing a single drop. Even though other disciples had already become arhat, but in previous life they did not practice memorization, so they couldn't remember all of Buddha's sermons. They obtained arhat level because they practiced terminating greed and delusion. Venerable Sutdipan Taka was an arhat, but he couldn't even memorize 4 words that were given from the Buddha. Sweep, dust, rid, filth. Whenever he remembered the sweep dust, then he would forget rid filth. Sweeping dust to review the true wisdom of the mind. In this previous life, he had a bad personality of blocking people from studying and listening to Dharma. For example, whoever invited me to listen to the Dharma, he said not to listen because it was no match for me. Going to listen to the Dharma would cost money for offering. Because of that karma in the previous life, he couldn't remember Buddha's teaching. However, Buddha still used different ways, such as sweeping the dust to help him obtain arhat level. Elder Kayasapa told Venerable Anang to ask the Buddha once the Buddha entered nirvana. On how would they record the sutra? Venerable Anang followed the Buddha from hell to heaven and memorized all his preaching. He is an audio recorder in this modern day time. We are more blessed in this life than in Buddha's time, because if we want to hear any preaching, we could simply just go on Google or YouTube. You can easily make any monk preach immediately by playing it on the internet. While in the kitchen, cooking and preparing food, they can also make any Dharma master preaching for them. People who have insomnia can look for some preacher with the sleepy voice to help them sleep. Is that true or not? We have too many Dharma preaching, and we no longer value the Dharma. Each preacher teaches a different way, and we are like walking in a swamp, not knowing any way out. I don't despise other Dharma masters, and I don't call out their names. If you cultivate the Pure Land method, they teach to recite Buddha's name without unwavering mind from 1 day to 7 days. You will be reborn in Pure Land. That is completely the true recording to the sutra. However, we can only keep our mind from wandering during the 45 minutes of chanting the Shurangama Sutra. But once the chanting has ended, our mind will begin to wander again. How many hours did we recite Buddha's name in a day? The practicing schedule at Amitabha village includes 1 hour of reciting Shurangama and then 10 mantras in the morning. Another hour of Amitabha Sutra at lunch, and 1 more hour of earth-stored sutra in the evening. How many hours of sleeping? 11 hours. How many hours for eating? It takes 1 hour in the morning to eat breakfast. That does not include the time for gossiping. Do we spend our day toward the Pure Land world or our world? The Buddha told us to recite the Amitabha Buddha's name 1 whole day with full concentration. Can anyone do it? No, probably not. So who will be able to be reborn in the Pure Land? Someone called me earlier. They told me their vulnerable said he doesn't know how Master Thong teaches his disciples the Pure Land method, but they all get sick at the end of their life. They all had to breathe with oxygen tanks and gasping for air like a fish. These actions were not right according to Buddha's teaching. That is, the practitioners must have a calm and clear mind at death. all of Master Tong's disciples require assisting to be reborn in the Pure Land. I simply told that person to ask her Venerable Master to live stream and show how his disciples act at death, and then we can talk. Do you agree or not? It is easy to criticize someone, but does that Venerable Master have any live stream sessions or not? I say straightforwardly, in this life, even senior monks at the end of their life would fail without the help or supportive recitation. Let me ask you this. Does cancer cause pain? Does it hurt at the end of life? As you watched me bathe Minhua last night, I stopped the live stream because it violated his personal privacy. However, I did not know the surveillance camera was still on. Once I stripped off his clothes and diaper, there was an ulceration with the size of my hand because he was bedridden for so long. Because of the stroke, Minhua couldn't talk, but he still feels the pain. Fortunately, his stroke happened during the winter. If it was in the summer, there would be many more bed sore lesions. The sickness is very miserable. During the time of Buddha, there were sick monks, and the Buddha also supported and comforted them. King Sutahana got sick, and the Buddha was also sick. The Buddha preached this sutra for disciples who've obtained the arhat, such as Elder Suputra. The Buddha told Venerable Anang to use this sentence. As I heard. At the beginning of every sutra, so followers in the Dharma ending period would not say the Buddha sutras were not made up by Venerable Anang. Venerable Anang did not obtain any level of enlightenment at that time. People who did not obtain enlightenment were still afflicted because they couldn't see things completely. For example, as you sit in front of me, you only see the back of my phone, and I can only see the screen of my phone. We only see a part of it. On the other hand, someone with the divine eyes of an arhat can see a full 360 degree. Venerable Anang then asked again if that was enough. Buddha said it was not enough because he needed to include the witness for verification purposes. For example, when Venerable Anang went to heaven and listened to a Buddha's preaching, the earth stored sutra for Queen Maya, there was King Brahma, King Indira, and many Bodhisattvas witnessing. As the Buddha preached Amitabha Buddha Sutra in the Jetavana Monastery. Venerable Anang had to list their witnesses. One day when I no longer will be around, the video clip will show the supportive recitation ceremony for Minhwa had his wife Diệu Hằng, Nun Hồng Đức, Nun Hồng Liên, Master Tuệ Niệm, Master Tu Năng, and other images to prove. The Buddha told Venerable Anang to state clearly anyone who obtained the sermons. As I heard, one day the Buddha was in the Jetavana Monastery of Anathapindika, Sarvasti, along with 1,250 senior monks. Venerable Anang also had to announce his location clearly. Where did Minhwa receive the supportive recitation? It was at Amitabha village of Indio, California, not Conroe, Texas. Otherwise, when people ask Diệu Thiên, and she won't have anything to prove. The sermon had 1,250 monks, which were all great arhats. Is that enough to prove it was from Buddha's teaching? Why didn't they call Jetavana? Suduta was a very rich man at that time. His assets were much more than many kings. However, he did not know the Buddha. The Buddha had been preaching Dharma to the Kanadina's brother and other disciples. The Jetavana monastery was not built at that time. One day, Sudutu came over to his son's fiancée to prepare for the upcoming wedding. The fiancé's villa was busy preparing vegetarian meals to offer the Buddha and his Shanghas. He was curious and asked who the Buddha and his Shangha were. The in-laws told him that the Buddha was Prince Sadutra, son of King Sahutan, practiced asceticism for 6 years and meditated for 49 days to obtain enlightenment. As soon as Sadutra heard the word Buddha, he was dumbfounded and wanted to know. The Buddhas taught people how to end the cycle of life and death. That is no longer Samara. He marched back and forth until midnight and couldn't wait any longer. He asked one of his in-laws' servants to take him to see the Buddha, but no one would go in the dark with him. Without any guidance, he headed out in the dark to find the Buddha according to his servant's instruction. The Buddha had supernatural powers, so he knew Saduta had a predestined relationship with him. And he used his divine powers to guide Saduta in the dark. Saduta followed the aurora of the Buddha to the bamboo grove Vihara. Upon his arrival, the Buddha gave Saduta a sermon about Dharma. He told the Buddha that he felt like he had known the Buddha for a long time and wanted to take refuge immediately before the Buddha could preach Dharma. The Buddha gave him a preaching about impermanent and karma that night. After listening to Buddha's teaching, Suddhutta immediately obtained the first level of enlightenment. That is Sotapanna. Suddhutta prostrated to the Buddha and requested the Buddha and the Sangha to his village and preach Dharma. His in-laws leased the bamboo grove Vihara from King Bimbrasra of Rajariya, while Suddhutta lived in Sarvasti, like the north, in the south of California. The Buddha so told Suddhutta that he accepted the request, but Suddhutta needed to find a Vihara for the Buddha's Sangha of 1,250 monks. Suddhutta asked the Buddha the necessity of a Vihara. The Buddha said the Vihara should be located not too close nor too far from the city, because it would be noisy if it was close to the city. And if it was located too far from the city, it would be difficult for the monks to beg for alms. At that time, the Buddha practiced meditation, so they needed a secluded place. There must also be a large pond for the monks to bathe in and wash their bowls. Buddhist monks took baths and washed their robes every 2 weeks. Suddhutta was very delighted. After completing the discussion with his in-laws, Suddhutta returned to Sarvasti and announced if anyone found an ideal place to build, the Vihara would be rewarded with 1,000 gold tassels. At that time, Elder Saputra was the one who helped to find the location for the Vihara. After meticulously search, Elder Saputra informed there was only one place. That was the garden of Prince Jata. It had plenty of shade, a stream and a lake. It was also located not too close nor too far from the city. Suddhutta said that he would contact Prince Jata, who was also acquainted with him, to purchase the garden. The prince was also very rich, so he did not want to sell his garden, but he was curious to know Suddhutta's motive to buy his garden at any price. The prince told Suddhutta the price was the amount of pure gold to cover 100-acre garden. The prince called out such a high cost because he did not want to sell his garden. Suddhutta told Elder Supatra that he would immediately open his vaults to buy the garden. He mobilized 1,000 ox carts to carry gold and start to cover the garden under the supervision of the prince's soldiers. The prince told his soldiers that he only wanted to see how wealthy Suddhutta was, but in fact, he did not want to sell his garden. After 3 days, the garden was covered in pure gold. The prince came to inspect and saw Suddhutta looking concerned. The prince asked him what was he thinking, and he said that there was only about 10 square meters that hadn't been covered with gold. Prince asked that, Sudatta, are you out of gold? Sudatta said that he still had numerous vaults still not open, but he worried because his servants couldn't lay gold where the trees grew. In the old days, people were very honest. The prince asked Sudatta who the Buddha was and why he respected the Buddha so much. Sudatta simply told the prince that he would do the same once he met the Buddha. Sudatta said he had so many assets, but he was always miserable. But thanks to Buddha's preaching, he was finally free. He made these offerings without any regrets. People who obtain the Sotapanna would not value assets. A few days ago, a villager told me that she had recited Buddha's name and she must have obtained the Sotapanna level. She wanted me to know that I don't have to worry much for her. I asked her how she could have known that. She said because I taught about this a very long time ago. She said she only has 7 cycles of rebirth and death because she had already obtained the first level of enlightenment. After death, she will go to heaven and stay there for millions of years and then return to this world again. Then after 7 cycles, she will surely be reborn in the Pure Land realm. She knew it because I talked about this at THôNG Temple 4. I then asked her if she knew the plan for today or not. She said that the village is getting ready for Dharma preaching to transfer the merit to Minhwa. She didn't even realize that Minhwa had already passed away.